so great to see you here. Welcome to this year's edition of the Flame Challenge. And this year's question is, what is sound? And now I'm going to read your mind. You're thinking, some of you must be thinking, why is it what is sound when it's called the Flame Challenge? Right, okay, there's one person confused. So here's why. The Flame Challenge was what we had the first year that we did this contest. The Flame Challenge was, the question that year was, what is a flame? And that was a question asked by a real 11-year-old who was me when I was 11. I was fascinated with the flame at the end of a candlelight, and I thought, what is that? What's going on in that flame? Who can explain it? So I went to a science teacher, and I said, what's going on in a flame? And she thought, and she said one word. She said, oxidation. So now I had two things they didn't understand. They didn't know what a flame was. They didn't know what oxidation was. And it took years before I asked the question again. About 5 years ago, I decided I'd start a contest and ask scientists to explain what a flame is so an 11-year-old could understand it and be engaged by it, maybe be excited by it and find it amusing and interesting. And the contest was judged by real 11-year-olds in countries all across the world. It was really exciting. And it was great. It was great for the scientists because they were challenged by having to be clear to an 11-year-old. And it turns out if an 11-year-old can get it, so can I. But it turned out to be even more interesting because the 11-year-olds had control over their own learning process. And they loved the idea that they could say to a real scientist, that's a good explanation, but it could be a little better. So it was a great learning experience for them. And at least one classroom said, I wish we could learn everything this way. So it's really been an interesting experience. And over the years, the kids have asked the questions. What is time? What is color? What is sleep? What is time was a really hard one for everybody, for the scientists especially. So I want to thank the sponsors who have made this possible over the years. It's really been wonderful to be associated with two of the greatest science organizations in the world, the American Association for the Advancement of Science and the American Chemical Society. And the president of the American Chemical Society is with us today, Donna Nelson. And Donna, thank you so much. So this year's question, what is sound, has been answered by scientists all around the world. And the answers come in two forms, two categories. One is a short written version and the other is a short video. And we're going to find out who the winners are of this year's contest. But before we do, we're going to introduce you to some sounds, some of which you may never have heard before. And you're also going to be able to hear some of these sounds, which is a weird thing. How can you hear? No, that's not a weird thing. That's the real thing. Sometimes I don't listen when I'm talking. I'll let the other guy take care of that. You're going to be able to see some of these sounds, which is weird to see sound. But you'll see what we mean when we get to that. But so to get things started, here's a man who loves science so much that he's devoted a great deal of his career to helping kids love science just as much. So here from Boulder, Colorado, please welcome Eddie Goldstein. Thank you, Eddie.
Hey guys, all right. How many of you guys are having a great time at the World Science Festival? All right. Whoa. Woo. Whoa. Oh, that's an oscilloscope. This is totally cool. Oscilloscopes are one of the scientific instruments that scientists use in order to analyze sound because they change things that you hear into things that you can see. Check this out. Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, now, here we go. The lowest sound that I can make. Oh. Check out how that sound pattern looks up on the screen. And now, the highest sound that I can make. Ee! Oh, totally different, totally different. Okay, here's one that you like. You want to watch out for that sound. That's not a good sound to
But
to
it's
be
good to
seen.
know what it looks like.
Exactly. Now we do. And that's only 2 of the senses. There's like 3 other senses to go. So, but getting back to what I was originally going to talk about, the high sounds and the low sounds, that is called pitch. Pitch is like a fascinating thing, and what I'm going to try to do over the next couple of minutes is to get you as excited about pitch, musical pitch, as I am. I'm going to be showing you some cool stuff. We're going to be doing some experiments, having lots of fun, but I need your help. So how many people are with me? How many of you guys are in? Okay, now we'll see what sort of sounds they can make. Okay, we'll start out. That is an oscilloscope. Let's get it running again. And I want you guys to make the lowest rumbling sound that you can make. Here we go. Okay, now check out what it looks like. Now, because there's so many of you, it's not as clear a sound. There's a lot of noise. And now the highest sound that you can make. Here it comes. It's like a Beatle concert, I'll tell you. Very different. And as I said, a lot of times scientists use this kind of instrument to analyze sound. You'll be hearing a lot more of that in a couple of minutes. I don't need this mic anymore, so let me give that to you. Thank you. And we are going to try right now to start out by making a sound wave. So let's get some house lights up. It's going to take a couple of tries. We've never done this before. But the first thing we're going to do is try to make a wave like you see at football stadiums. The only difference is we're going to go from here all the way back. And you guys in the front row follow my lead. So not quite yet, but I'm going to go up, down, and you guys follow my lead, and then we'll get that wave to propagate all the way back. Are you ready? You guys, everybody ready? Okay, here we go. Ready? Up and down. Nice, nice. Okay, it's moving. Oh, that's good. That is good. Okay, let's try it again. Let's try it again. We're looking good. We're looking good. Ready? Front row, pay attention here, guys. Up and down. Nice, nice. Okay. So that's not quite a sound wave yet, because that was just one crest of a wave. And as you know, a sound wave has a lot of crests. So here's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to do like wave, 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 and see if we can get it rippling all the way up the auditorium. Are you guys ready? Here we go. Up and down. Up and down. Up and down. Up and down. Okay, stop it. Okay, that was good.
I don't know. I'm
was
not
not-
sure
was not-
this looks more like chaos theory.
Exactly. Okay, but now they know what we're shooting for. Okay.
Yeah.
So you want to stick with your whole row, because if we do this, we're going to get the whole auditorium to go like that. So one last try. This is going to be fun. Here we go. Up and down. Okay. Up and down. All right. Up and down. Up and down. Very nice. Very nice.
You know, one thing that I noticed that really this is a great demonstration of the fact that when you drop a stone in water, you get ripples, but the molecules of water don't move. They don't move out away from the stone, just the way the people are not moving from the first row to the back of the house. They move up and down, huh?
That is very interesting, that the individual molecules are not what's moving, it's the wave that's moving.
Yeah.
Very cool. And actually, there were a couple of other things that I wanted to mention about. The speed of sound is how fast it takes one of those crests to move up the auditorium. The wavelength is what is the distance between one crest and another crest, and it was sort of like 4 or 5 rows in between crests as we moved up. But the most interesting one is the frequency. The frequency is really what tells you about the pitch, and that is what was the rhythm that individual people were moving up and down. That's what the frequency...
So it's how frequently they occur.
That's right. And the faster the frequency, the higher the pitch. The lower the frequency, the lower the pitch.
So I go like this, that makes the air wave at a certain frequency and it hits your ear.
That's exactly right. But you know, the human ear can hear anywhere from like 20,000 to 20,000 cycles per second, hertz that's called, but not everybody can hear that. And so I've got a little hypothesis. My hypothesis is that not everybody in this room hears frequencies the same, and so I'm going to try an experiment to see if my hypothesis is true. We are going to see which frequencies you guys can hear. So everybody stand up. If you don't actually want to stand, you can just hold your arms up, but most people stand up. Most people stand up. Let's get some house lights up so we can see what's going on. I'm going to play a series of tones. If you hear the tone, stay standing. If you can't hear the tone, sit down, and that way we'll see which frequencies people can hear. Okay, here comes the first frequency. It is 250 cycles per second, and let's see if you can hear it. Okay, stay standing if you can hear it. Everybody, that's good. That's good. Okay, let's try a little bit more. This is 500 hertz. 500 times per second, your eardrum is going to be vibrating. Here it comes. Everybody's still standing, it seems. Let's go up 1,000 hertz, 1,000 cycles per second. Here it comes. Good. Okay, maybe one or two people sat down. Let's see, let's go even faster. 4,000 hertz. Not a pleasant thing, but people are still standing. 8,000 hertz. 8,000 hertz. Here it comes. Now, some people are sitting down. Some people are sitting down. By the way, that 8,000 hertz, there are shopping malls that play that 8,000 hertz because it drives the teenagers nuts, and the old people can't hear it. It keeps moving. You didn't hear a word I said. That's okay. It's all right. Okay, we're going. 16,000. Let's go for 16,000 hertz. Okay, 16,000. Now, a lot of people sat down, but not everybody. Some people were just tired, but, you know, we're okay. 20, and I did not hear it, so I'm just trusting that they're actually doing these sounds. 20,000 hertz, this is the top one that we're going to do. Okay, now check it out. Stay standing. Let's see how old, you're still standing. How old are you? 10, how old are you? 13, how old are you? 12, how old are you? 35.
Could we bring out the lie detector?
He's an outlier over there. Yeah. But you know what? Have a seat, everybody. That was awesome. But it makes me wonder about another thing, which is maybe the sounds that you hear are related to the age that you are. And that gives me another hypothesis. That happens all the time in science. All the time you do an experiment, you find out the answer to your experiment, and then you come up with another question and another experiment. But I have to ask you, Alan, you sat down relatively early.
Yeah, I did, because when I was about 20, I was in the Army, and I was on the firing range, and there were about 100 rifles going off at the same time. And when they all went off at once, I got this ringing in my ears, and the next day I couldn't hear high-pitched sounds. And I still can't hear high-pitched sounds. So if people's voices are too high-pitched, I can't hear them very well, can't understand them.
And a lot of times people say that the S sound and the F sound are high-frequency sounds, and that it's difficult to differentiate.
I can't tell S and F apart. So if somebody says to me, "How does your foop taste?" I can't tell. I have to take a fip of my foop to see.
So I have to ask you, when you were on MASH, were there a lot of loud gun sounds on that on the set?
And we had explosions and things like that. But also, I've just accomplished this by getting older too. You know, interestingly, I had to go many years before I could start to hear high-pitched sounds because hearing aids couldn't do it for a long time. They just made things louder, but they didn't accommodate the high pitch.
And now they have like little computer chips in there that help out with that.
Right.
So actually, let me tell you a little bit about how sound works and how your ear works.
I'm all ears.
When a sound is produced, it causes a vibration. And that pushes against the air, so you get a high pressure zone where that air squeezes up, and then a lower pressure zone. Every time that vibration happens, you get high pressure, high pressure, high pressure, high pressure, high pressure. So imagine a bunch of high pressure zones all the way across the stage, and those high pressure zones are moving like that. When they get to your eardrum, they hit your eardrum, and that causes your eardrum to vibrate. And when your eardrum vibrates, it causes 3 little bones in your ear to vibrate because they're touching your eardrum. And those bones actually magnify the vibration until they reach the cochlea. That is an actual photograph of a cochlea inside your inner ear. All those little black, what look like hairs are nerve cells, and they respond to the different frequencies of sound. Here's the interesting thing. They respond to different frequencies. The ones near the front are the highest pitch, the 20,000 hertz, and as you go deeper and deeper and deeper inside the cochlea, they respond to lower and lower and lower frequencies. So if you hear loud sounds, or if you, as you age, it's those ones that are the high-pitched ones that get damaged first or tired out. And so that's why a lot of people, as you get older, or if you listen to a lot of loud music with earbuds, that kind of thing, you can damage especially that high-frequency sounds. Here's the cool part. A lot of animals can hear outside of the zone that humans can hear. Dogs can hear 44,000 hertz, 44,000 times per second. And so they make dog whistles that humans can't hear, but dogs are able to hear. On the other end of the spectrum, elephants can hear down to 17 hertz, way below human hearing. And this is the coolest thing. They can communicate like a mile away, and scientists didn't know why for a long time until they started listening for those low-frequency sounds. And believe it or not, the elephant makes the sound, it travels through the ground, and a mile away, the other elephant can actually feel that sound and hear that sound through its legs.
They hear with their feet?
They hear with, well, it comes through. You know what? When you think about it, people who are hearing impaired a lot of times go to discos and they feel the rhythms through their feet. Yeah. So that is not unheard of. His puns are better than mine, I have to just say. I just have to say. The other one I wanted to tell you about is there are some very large whales that can hear down to 1 cycle per second, 1 hertz. They can communicate with other whales that are hundreds of miles away through the water. It's absolutely amazing, and you're going to be hearing more about that a little bit later in this show. But before doing that, I wanted to do something cool with pitch and show you how you can actually change the pitch by changing the speed of sound. And in order to do that, I would like to get a helper. We have somebody that came here early. Come on out onto the stage. All right. Your name again?
Alec.
Alec. Give Alec a big round of applause. I will take that. There we go. And what I'm about to show you right now is something that I am doing on my smartphone. In order to do this, 20 years ago even, you would have had to gone to like a major research laboratory, but now you can do it with a smartphone. It's called sound sampling. Here's what's going to happen, Alec. When I touch you on the back, I want you to go, "No way," and I'm going to record it, okay? Little practice.
No way.
That was good. That was good. Did you see the hands go out like that?
Yeah,
That was
great.
That was good.
Wow,
Okay,
great.
so now we are getting ready to record. Nice and loudly. Here we go.
No way.
Okay, you didn't get a report that time. That's all right. Okay, let's listen.
No way.
Okay, now here's what's going to... So here's what's going to happen. When I tap you, I don't want you to say anything. I just want you to move your mouth and go, and I'll make the sound from here. Okay, little practice?
No way.
That is it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you the story of Alec's life. When Alec was 3 years old, his mom came in and said, "Now, Alec, you have to eat all your vegetables before you can have any dessert." And Alec said, "What did you say, young man?" You see, I was able to speed up the sound. It's almost like taking those sound waves and compressing them together. I was able to speed it up to get a higher pitch. So fast forward a little bit. Alec is in 3rd grade. His teacher comes in and says, "Now, Alec, you just got 100% on your science test." And Alec said, "No way." By the way, that deserves a big round of applause, don't you think? 100% on science. How many of you ever have gotten 100% on a test? Raise your hand if you've got. Give those guys a round of applause if you've gotten 100% on a test. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now we are going to look into the future. Alec, you are 35 years old. Your spouse comes in and says, "Now, Alec, do you remember that yesterday was our anniversary?" And Alec says, they're laughing now. They won't be laughing then. And now, 98 years old, the nurse walks in and says, "Now, Alec, you have to eat all your vegetables before you can have dessert." And Alec says, you see, I slowed it down, and that's how I was able to change the pitch by doing that. Thank you very much, Sir Alec. Give him a big round of applause. Did you have a good time, Alec? All right, that's what I was...
Great, Alec.
Okay. Well, we've got one more thing that I'm going to do, but you are in for such a treat because we've got a whole hour's worth of cool stuff that's coming up. These are called boom whackers. Whoa, that felt good. Okay. Different ones make different sounds, and I am going to ask a bunch of people from out of the audience to come on up onto stage. Come on out here, guys. Come on out here. All right, let's just get you over here. Here's a boom whacker for you. There's one for you. There's one for you. There's one for you. There's one for you. One left. Alan, there we go. One for you. Okay, let me explain how this works. Everybody take a step forward. Give these guys a round of applause. They deserve it. Okay, here's how you play the boom whacker. Hit yourself on the head a couple times. Doesn't hurt. That's good, but they're not smiling. Okay, smile when you do it. There we go. Okay, here's the first challenge. Okay, really loud so we can hear it. Okay, that's good. Here's the challenge. I want you to order yourself from the lowest pitch sound to the highest pitch sound, but you're not allowed to play the sounds. You have to somehow figure out lowest pitch to highest pitch. I don't know if they did it or not. Why did you do it the way you did?
I think the shorter the stick, the boom whacker, the higher the sound.
Okay, so hold him up. He said the shorter the boom whacker, the higher the sound. Hold him up. Let's see. Okay, now that is his hypothesis. I'm going to go and see actually the sounds. Here's what's going to happen. When I tap you on the shoulder, I just want you to hit yourself once on the head. All right, they did it. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, the 2016 World Science Festival Flame Challenge Band is going to play a little musical number for you. Here we go. Are you ready? Let's hear it for him. Take a bow there, guys. Take a bow.
Great, thank you.
Drop them in, drop them in. There we go, there we go. No, drop that one in, drop that one in, drop that one in. You guys head off in that direction. Alan, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Eddie Goldstein. Thank you, Eddie. So I guess this is a musical instrument because it makes a sound, makes a pitch. But instruments sound different. Real musical instruments sound different from one another. So we want to explore why. And to help us do that, we have musician and mathematician from Rollins College in Florida, Whitney Coyle. Please welcome Whitney Coyle.
Thank you guys for having me. This is a really nice transition to go from talking about these boom whackers, which they showed you. They were musical, right? We got to hear a song. And the great thing they just showed us was that the length of our boom whacker determined the pitch, right? They showed us that the low one was the long one, okay? And the high one was the short one, the one that you have, right? And it's pretty cool because musical instruments, a very basic thing we can see is that they do pretty much the same thing. One that you might be familiar with, are there any trombone players in the audience? We like the trombone, right? It's pretty fun. Let's see what he can do for us. Perfect, right? So what did he do? He lengthened the slide. He made the instrument actually longer, so it played a lower pitch, right? He brought the slide back in, and he was able to bring the pitch up. So it's pretty easy to see on the trombone what's happening there. Maybe a little harder to see on these two instruments, two of my favorites. I play the clarinet, so I'm a little biased, but the clarinet and the flute. So if you're not familiar, let me give you a little demonstration of what these guys sound like. So the flute sounds like this. Okay, and how can we perhaps change the pitch of a flute? Well, one way is to lift up some fingers. So when I do that, what I'm actually doing is shortening the length of the instrument. The sound is going to partly come out of this first open hole now. Now that my fingers are off, the pitch should be higher. Let's see. And it is, so that's good, right? And the same thing for the clarinet. So I put all of my fingers down. I lift some fingers up. All of them. That also works. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm changing the length of the instrument. It changes the notes, among other things that we can do. We'll learn later. But for these two instruments, they're about the same length, okay? So they should, with all of my fingers down, play about the same note, but they don't. And they don't sound the same, do they? So today we're going to figure out why that might be, okay? So Alan, could you tell me, maybe, what do you see about these two instruments that are different?
Well, obviously, one is shiny and one is dark, so the shiny one is higher.
That might be the case. That's a really good hypothesis, which we're going to test.
Wouldn't you think?
That might be why. So they used to make clarinets out of metal, too. So there were some shiny clarinets. There were also wood flutes. I'm sure you've heard them. And they still sound really fluty. So let's try a different theory. Is there anything else that you see that's different here?
Well, one has that wood on the end.
That's right. So the reed, the clarinet reed, is very different than how I play the flute. So with the clarinet, I have to put the whole mouthpiece in my mouth, and you're blowing over top of this little piece of wood at the beginning, okay? And as you blow across the top, the reed begins to vibrate, but really, really small vibrations, okay? And it sends these vibrations into the instrument. Whereas for the flute, when I play, I'm actually playing it kind of like a soda bottle, okay? I'm blowing across this hole here, okay? And as the air hits the edge of this hole, it starts to vibrate, okay? So instead of with the reed, it's really just hitting the hole, vibrating back and forth, and that's how the sound can begin, okay? Well, the big difference about these instruments that we're going to see today is, as I said, the beginning. And what we as acousticians call this is this opening here. It's an open end. So where the sound begins is actually at the opening here. and the other end is open, of course. We want to be able to hear musical sound, right? But for the clarinet, because the reed is on the mouthpiece inside your mouth, we actually consider this to be a closed end of the instrument, okay? The sound can only exit through the end, okay? It can't come back out here, right? But for the flute, you could have it exit at each end. I'm not sure if you've ever seen flautists use a microphone. They actually are up really close to the microphone because the sound can come out here or the other end. But what's happening inside is probably the most interesting thing. So the beginnings of the instruments change that. So we want to understand what's happening inside to figure out what we're going to hear, okay? So the way we're going to do that, we don't usually get to see sound, unfortunately, but we have an apparatus that we're going to use today that's going to help us see sound. And the way we're going to do that is by using this tube. Okay, it's a much larger tube than a musical instrument, but in some similar ways, it has little bitty holes drilled on the top, okay? And there's a speaker at this end. So instead of a reed, instead of me blowing into the instrument, there's a speaker. And what sound really is, okay, is this speaker, you may have seen before, is going to push on the gas that's inside of the tube. Usually a speaker is pushing on air. And that push on the air, that compression of the air comes to your ear vibrates, as you just learned from Eddie, right? But for the Rubens tube, so that we can see sound, I'm not going to put air in here. What could we maybe put inside this tube? Water, that would be interesting. Yeah, I've seen that before. We're going to put some type of gas. How about propane? Okay, so we're going to put propane into this tube. Okay.
Oh, well, look, here comes the fire department.
Yeah, we got some safety here. I was told to say, kids, don't try this ever. Let's just go with that. Okay, so I'm going to plug some things up and see what we can get. For now, there's no sound in the tube, but I got to get the fire started, right? This is the flame challenge, so we may as well have some flames at some point. So, give it a second to warm up here. And what you're going to see is that there's some tubes back here. You can't see this part. But all of these little holes have little bits of the propane coming out, okay? And so, like I said, for now, no sound, nothing super interesting, but we are going to see a little bit of fire, we hope, and not need the fire extinguisher. Let's see. Okay, good. We've got the fire. So for now, if you're seeing them moving, it's from the air conditioning, okay? Moving back and forth, nothing we can do about that, unfortunately. But before we talk about this in a perhaps musical acoustics type of way, we are going to turn this down a bit. It's one thing. Don't want to create any bad things here. We are going to maybe just see what happens if I put some classical music into here, okay? So I'm going to change this over. I'm going to play a piece by perhaps the most famous rock star ever, okay? His name is Bach. Maybe you know him. And see what happens to the flames in our tube. So we're going to actually see sound, okay? You ready? See what happens. Make sure it's all good and turned up. And I'm going to step away just a little bit. See what we get.
So let me make sure I get this.
Yes.
This sound, the loudspeaker is at the end of the tube, and every time the volume changes, the propane gets compressed.
Right.
And where it gets compressed and moves in a wave, that's where you have more of it burning, so the flame shoots higher.
Right, so in this case, what you were seeing is as it was jumping, it's reacting to how fast or how hard, I guess, the speaker is pressing on that propane. So for now, with this music, you know that music like this has a lot of different frequencies. He's not just, playing one piano key. That might get a little boring after a while. But he's playing a lot of different piano keys, right? So the different frequencies will make this flame do different things. So one interesting thing we could do is let's just send one frequency into our Rubens tube. Try not to get too close. All right. And we can see if we can see one wave, right? We saw a lot of different things jumping. Let's see. Turn it down a little bit. Not that high. So what I'm doing is I'm sending one frequency in now. And for certain frequencies, the tube really likes it. And what you're going to see, if I can find one for you guys, turn it down a little bit. It's a little finicky with the air conditioning, so. Not finding one. So what we're trying to see is at certain frequencies, you're actually going to get places where you have a distinct area of high pressure, so it's really squished together, and that flame should be higher, and it should stay there. And then you have areas of low pressure, okay? So as we go along, if I continue increasing the frequency, we'll find many more of those pictures. So that's what's called, for this tube, this length of tube, it's called a resonance frequency. So I kind of like to think about it like the frequencies that this tube likes, okay? I don't change the length, and I'm able to figure out when the sound, if you're listening, is actually really loud. It's a frequency the tube likes. Okay? And you'll end up getting those different peaks. Sorry, I couldn't find them for you here. I'll try one more time. It's very slight, the difference. You know, that's what you get. You rehearse, and what do you get? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this down and tell you how that can relate to our musical instruments. I mean, flames are great, right? But we still are going to talk about this clarinet over here, so let's be safe about this. I'm going to turn my propane off. All right. Plenty of wonderful videos out there where you can watch this and see some more. Okay, so how can we relate that to musical instruments? What I was trying to show you, and at least I can tell you about, is the fact that for this one note that I would play for you on a flute, there are actually many notes being played at the same time. Musical sound is so interesting because your ear is actually hearing more than just that one note, okay? So if I played you the flute, and I played just this one note, we say, well, yes, that sounds like a flute. We know that sounds like a flute, but why? We are definitely getting there. So I'm gonna ask our trombone player to come back out for us, okay? And just like the Rubens tube, he's not gonna change the length. Okay, he's going to change something else. And so play your favorite note for me, please. It's a good one. It's a good note, yeah. And without changing the slide, can you find other notes for us, perhaps? Great,
How did he
excellent.
do that? Come on.
Bravo. So what is it musically that he's doing as a musician? He's changing a little bit about how tight his embouchure is. He's blowing a little bit harder. And I can actually do the same thing for the flute. So I'm going to play that low note again, okay? And then I'm going to blow a little bit harder and see if I can find those other frequencies that this tube likes, okay? So I'm not going to change my fingers. And if you've been watching up here, this is kind of fun to watch, right? You can just turn this on at a party or something and have a little fun. So what we're seeing here is it's kind of like a frequency finder. So this program is picking up what frequencies are being heard in the room. So if I play the flute one more time, just to see this lowest frequency that I'm actually playing, okay?
All of those spikes are other tones that are being played at the same time?
At the same time. So your ear is great. It says, well, I know that the highest one.
We think we're only hearing the first one on the left.
That's right. That's exactly right. So your ear says, okay, I understand that this frequency that I'm playing is around 500 hertz, if you look at the bottom line here. And the highest one, the strongest one, the one that your ear understands, is the note. is that first one, okay? But what makes it sound like a flute, what gives it its tone color or timbre, as you may have heard before, is the fact that you have a lot of other things happening that you don't really perceive as being the note. But it also means that if you follow, as I play here in a moment, if you follow, I'm going to play the low note. As I blow harder, I can actually play on that second highest peak. Okay, and these are called harmonics. Try again. So as I blow harder and harder, I'm actually going up onto those different harmonics. And okay, that sounds like a flute, great. But we still haven't talked about why a clarinet doesn't sound like a flute, right? The clarinet, it turns out, does not have all of those peaks like the flute does. Okay, so all of these peaks, we actually saw that, couldn't do the calculation that fast, but you saw that the first frequency, let's say, was around 200 hertz or so. The second frequency that I played was about 400, so it was twice that. The next one was 3 times the first one, so 2, 400, 600, so on and so on. So I have all of the harmonics in this sound, okay? The clarinet actually doesn't have every other one of those. So you can't play, like I did for the flute, you can't play the second harmonic. There's a big jump. So for example, if I were to play, just really quickly, the clarinet, I'm going to keep all my fingers down. I'm going to do something a little tricky to try to play the next harmonic, like I did on the flute, okay? So I actually skipped one of them, and I really can't do anything with keeping all of my fingers the same way.
What if you got a better clarinet? What is there
really
about
good
the clarinet
question.
that makes you not able to play those in-between harmonics?
It's a really good question. So that goes back to when we were talking about that this end is effectively closed and this end is open, whereas this is open and open. So you're not able, acoustically, you're not able to get the ones in between. And it's an interesting thing because if you wanted to have a perception of the sound, if you listen to a clarinet versus a flute, what are some words you might think of to describe the sound? Anything you can think of? High and low, that's good, yeah. How about the timbre, the tone color of the sound? Yes. Shrill and fat, I like that. Yes, okay. So the words I always think of, I really do, I'm going to write those down. The words I always think of are like a dark or, let's stick with dark, fat, and a bright sound. So a lot of people say the clarinet has a darker sound, and what contributes to that is physically not being able to play those even number 2, 4, and 6, and 8, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to ask a little assistant here to help me play, just so we can see. So like I said, on the flute, I can play 1, 2, and 3. So I'm just going to do that really quickly, and you guys can follow along on our cool graph up here. Okay, 1, 2, and 3. And what can you do? Okay, so like I said, she was skipping one of them, but it may be hard to hear. So let's try to play together. Forgive us if we're not in tune. Okay, that's scientist, right? Okay. Okay, here we go. So I was able to play the second one, but she's not. And so that's one of the many things that the most important to me that makes the clarinet sound so much different than the flute. Thank you so much. Wonderful clarinet player. Last minute. Thank you. So to finish up here, to kind of give you something to test our hypothesis, okay? We said at first, well, maybe it's because of the body of the instrument, right? This one's metal, this one's wood. Maybe that affects something. Or what if I were to put a clarinet beginning on a flute end? Okay, we're going to test some hypotheses, see if I can actually play this crazy instrument. What should happen based on what we've learned today? Should it sound like a clarinet or a flute? A clarinet, exactly. So we've got that closed end, open end. Let's see how I do here. That's pretty clarinet-y, right? Yeah, okay. So I think that as a, I'm not gonna call this like, okay, a flute with a clarinet head, right? We made a new instrument. So we have two choices here. I thought of this. We can either call it a clarinet or a klute, but I'll let you guys decide, speak amongst yourselves, and we'll reconvene afterwards, okay?
Thank you. Great, Whitney. Thank you so much. That was
Thank you.
great. Whitney Coyle. So now I want you to imagine that you're in a dark cave in New Mexico, and up on the roof of the cave are thousands and thousands of bats. And as they hang there, they're letting loose some unmentionable stuff from their bodies. And here comes an intrepid scientist, all suited up to be able to avoid being hit too badly by the stuff coming out of the bats' bodies. Please meet Batwoman and Bioacoustician from St. Mary's College in Notre Dame, Laura Kloepper.
Welcome to my bat cave. What you are looking at is a video taken inside of a cave that houses approximately 1 million bats. Now yes, I know, hence the suit. In this cave, it's completely dark. So I use a special camera called a thermal camera that uses the body heat of the bats to take this video. So what you're looking at are bats on the top of the cave ceiling, and each bat is represented by a white blob and then a darker blob in the middle. And although being inside this bat cave is probably one of the most bizarre environments you will ever encounter, I'm not interested in what's happening inside the cave. I'm interested in what happens when the bats leave the cave. This is a video I took of when the bats are leaving the cave each evening to begin their nightly feeding. And this video is actually slowed down 10 times the normal speed. These bats are leaving the cave at speeds of 25 miles an hour, flapping their wings about 10 times per second, and doing this in groups that can leave at about 1,000 bats per second from the cave. And although this is really fascinating, the best part about this is they're doing this all using sound. You see, unlike us, we are primarily visual creatures. Bats do not rely as much on their vision. Instead, they have adapted a unique strategy for their environment. When they want to make a picture of their environment, they make a loud sound. They make this sound inside their throat, just like we do, and then they emit that sound either through their mouth or through their nose, depending on the species of the bat. This sound comes out into their environment, bounces off an object, and comes right back to them, and it's that echo that gives them information on their surroundings. And this process is called echolocation. So when I talk about bats and sound, I like to use the analogy of light. And this is because, again, we are visual creatures, so we can really understand light. So when bats are making a sound and it comes out in a very narrow beam. So as the bat moves its head around as it's echolocating, it can direct where that beam of sound is moving. Now, the bats are not constantly making sound, just like this beam of light is constantly making a beam of light. Instead, they're making sounds with spaces in between. So let me give you my best bat impression. So to better represent, thank you. To better represent what this might look like, again, we're talking about looking at sound, we'll have this light flashing. So this is how bats are taking in a picture of their environment, flashing lights. But what if you're in a big group of bats? Well, instead of just one beam of light, a big group like this video here, you would have a whole lot of flashing beams of sound in your environment. So if you are a bat and you're flying with all of your bat friends, how on earth do you figure out which beam of sound belongs to you? If you were in this environment, it would seem pretty chaotic. But what if the bats can do something that can make their sounds sound to themselves unique? Instead, let's use color as an analogy. So now, even though we have a lot of flashing lights, each light is its own unique color. So we can now tell that there's different lights that are flashing. Now, of course, bats can't make color with their sound, so how might they be doing this? Well, this is what I study. This is my line of research. So we can use math to understand bat sounds. This is something called a spectrogram. And a spectrogram is a graphical representation of sound. So you're looking at 4 different calls made by 4 different bats. Each graph has the same axes. On the horizontal, or the x-axis, we have time. And on the vertical, or the y-axis, we have frequency or pitch. And so we can use our eyes and see that these calls have very different shapes. Now let me remind you that in the bat's world, everything is sped up about 10 times that of the human world. So what we can see looks like a fairly long call here to a bat, or if we listen to it, would sound simply like a single pulse. But how do the bats perceive these sounds? Okay, now I get to do a better bat impression, but I'll slow it down just a little bit. All right, so if you were a bat, we'll all pretend that we're bats. Sound A might sound something like this. Pew! Sound B has a longer, higher frequency portion, so it might sound something like this. Pew! Call C has a longer, lower frequency portion, so this might sound to a bat something like this. Pew! And then the fourth call, call D, has a little bit longer, higher and lower portion, so to a bat it might sound something like this. Pew! So, by over-exaggerating this, you can all hear how these sounds are very different. And this might be the key as to how these bats can fly in these really large groups using sound and figure out what sound belongs to them. And of course, this is just a hypothesis, so like any good scientist, I now have to go out, collect lots and lots of data to help support my hypothesis. And in fact, in just 3 short days, I'm leaving with my research team to go travel the country for the rest of the summer as we get all suited up and go to bat caves and try to go and do as many recordings as we can to help support this hypothesis. So with that, I must say goodbye and be off to my bat cave.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. But here's the thing. It turns out that bats aren't the only creatures to use sound to find their way around or to home in on what they're interested in. Take a look at this. You remember how Eddie said that some big whales use sound to communicate over a long, long distance? And they do it underwater. Well, this is a smaller kind of whale. And this was really amazing to me to find out just a couple of days ago that dolphins are actually a kind of whale. And they use sound to echolocate. So just as Laura Kloepper had to get dressed up in her bat gear to record the sounds that bats make, recording dolphin sounds also takes a special outfit. And here, just coming back fresh from exploring the sounds that dolphins make as they echolocate. A very echolocating scientist, Laura Kloepper.
Yes, that's right. It's me again. You know, I was thinking of titling my talk, Bats versus Dolphins, Anything You Can Do, I Can Do Better. Because, sorry about that. The truth is that although you can't find 2 unrelated animals, bats and dolphins have both evolved the same strategy to deal with different challenges in their environment. And of course, that strategy is echolocation. So I talked to you a little bit earlier about bats and how bats use their echolocation, but now let me talk to you about dolphins. So dolphins produce sounds completely different than any other animal, and this is really, really interesting. Here I have a dolphin skull. Behind me, you can see a picture of a dolphin. So if I were to show you this dolphin skull and say this was a dolphin skull, or not tell you this was a dolphin skull, Would you be able to tell that this skull and that animal are the same? I hear some yeses, I hear some no's. What's missing? What's different between this skull and the picture behind me? All of this, right? And all of this is what makes their sound so interesting. All of this is how they're actually making their echolocation sounds. So let me explain to you how these dolphins make their sounds. We're going to put the lower jaw over here and come back to that in a second. So the way that these dolphins make their sounds, they make their sounds using high-pressure air. So they have these two bony passageways right here. I'll turn this so some of you can see it. Two bony passageways inside their skull that connect directly to the lungs. And they fill up the inside of that bony passageway with high-pressure air, just like a balloon. So at the top of, sorry about that, guys. At the top of the bony passageways, there's two slits of tissue on either side. And when the dolphin pushes air past those slits of tissue, it makes little vibrations, just like if I let air out of this balloon. It made sound, right? It's because the balloon membrane is vibrating as the air passes across it. And that's exactly how the dolphin makes those sounds. In addition to having these two membranes, the dolphin has other structures that it uses to make sounds as well. It has these two air sacs that sit right in front of the sound-producing tissues. And these two air sacs can be inflated with air to help push sound towards the front of the dolphin's forehead. In addition, they have this structure that resembles a large egg, and it's filled with special fats. And this structure is called a melon. And this is because early whalers thought this resembled a watermelon. And these special fats and the air sacs all together help take the sound and push it towards the front of the dolphin. And it comes right out the forehead of the dolphin. So, I think that's pretty interesting. But what I think is the most interesting of all is how they actually hear their sounds. We hear our sounds through our external ears. Dolphins do not use their external ears. Instead, they use their jaw. So let me flip around the jaw for you. Inside, the jaw is fairly hollow. I can actually stick my finger all the way inside here. And inside this jaw, it's filled with special acoustic fats. These fats help transmit sound, and it goes and connects directly to the inner ear of the dolphin. So when it makes a sound, it pushes it out through the forehead, bounces off an object, comes right back in through the jaw of the dolphin. Pretty neat, right? All right, so now let's come back to this analogy of light. I like to talk about light a lot because remember, we are visual creatures. So when a dolphin is producing sound, just like bats do, it produces a very narrow beam of sound, much like this. So what you're actually listening to are some of the dolphin echolocation signals. So the dolphin echolocation signals, we might not be able to actually hear individual calls. When the dolphin is producing a call, it actually, just like the bat, can pull out individual pulses. But to us, it sounds like buzzing. Bzzzt, bzzzt, bzzzt. But the dolphin, just like the bat, its world is sped up much more than ours. So it can detect those individual pulses. And also, just like a bat, it can focus its sound into a very narrow beam of sound or of light. So let's have that light beam now. All right, so if my lovely assistant over here is a dolphin producing his narrow beam of sound, and I am a fish that the dolphin wants to echolocate on, the dolphin produces a very narrow, intense, loud beam of sound. And this is really good if you're trying to detect a fish that's at a really far distance, because it gives you a very strong echo coming back to that dolphin. But if I'm a fish and the dolphin is getting closer to me, and I want to suddenly try to escape the dolphin, I can move out of the beam of that narrow sound, and suddenly the dolphin can't see me with its sound. So what does the dolphin do? Well, the dolphin can actually change. It can widen its beam of sound as it gets closer and closer to the fish, so that no matter where I'm moving, if I'm trying to escape the dolphin can still see me with its sound. So this is how the dolphin is changing its sound, much like how bats can change their sounds as well. So many people ask me, why do I study bat and dolphin echolocation? Of course, it's fun, right? I get to travel to really great places, study really charismatic animals. Well, the bats might be debatable, but I think they're charismatic. But the bottom line is that everything we know right now about math, biology, physics, says that these animals should not be as good at echolocation as they actually are. So because everything we know about science says they can't be that good, that doesn't make any sense. That means we're missing something. And if we're missing something, we can help understand why they are so good, and that has applications in our everyday lives. We use sonar more and more nowadays in all kinds of devices that we're finding, and as technology is improving, we're finding sonar in many more things as well. So if we can figure out the mystery of these animals, we can make our own devices better, faster, cheaper. So this is why I keep doing my research and what keeps pushing me forward. And so with that, I must say goodbye for real. I really must be off to my bat cave, and thank you all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Bravo. Thank you, Laura. Laura Kloepper. Well, now it's time to find out who the winners of this year's Flame Challenge are going to be. We had 220 entries from scientists all around the world, 18 different countries, and those entries were judged by 26,000 kids in classrooms all over the world. A few weeks ago, I had a chance to talk with a few of those classes on what we call the worldwide assembly that we do on the internet each year. And you can see the kids discussing the entries in this little clip we have of the worldwide assembly.
Welcome to the Flame Challenge. Let's meet the kids who have joined us from around the world in today's webcast. In Arizona, the Knox Gifted Academy. In Illinois, the Roosevelt Middle School. Hiya. In India, the American School of Bombay. Great. In California, the Los Alamitos Elementary School. And in England, Southampton, England, the Town Hill Junior School. There you are. Great, great. Good to see you. In Connecticut, the Beecher Road School. There they are. Hiya, hiya, kids. And in Vermont, the J.J. Flynn Elementary School. Let's go to Mumbai.
I find that it's very appropriate for our age because of how it uses an example.
I thought they used the word wiggle a lot, and I thought that was a little bit distracting.
It's so interesting. You know, sometimes humor lands on some people really well and on other people not so well.
I thought that it was a really good entry because it explained really well about, like, imagine if you were really tiny and you went inside the ear. I could just walk down, like, in a weird hairy ear.
That's great. It'd be fun to get inside a hairy ear.
I liked how he did the example of, like, Sam and how Sam heard the vibration of the drum when it was banged.
I thought this entry was definitely unique to me because instead of just giving me information, it gave me examples.
I thought the experiment was really interesting and really captured my attention.
I thought that it was good because it connected to both the audience's head and their heart.
Well, I thought it was the best entry that there was because it used hands-on experiments and it made me wonder about other things about how my instrument, which is the tuba, made sound, even though it didn't have strings.
I didn't really think it started off with a strong introduction, because usually I prefer that most introductions start off with a question.
When he used big words that I didn't know or understand, he explained them and he told us what they mean. He didn't explain how we hear the sounds, so if he could explain more about that, that'd be great.
I found it a little bit confusing because I'm only 9, but I think it would 11-year-olds would understand it more than me.
So now, to help me announce our winners, we have our no way guy, Alec, who's going to come back and help me announce the winners. Alec, hi. Thanks so much. You were such a hit before we brought you back. Now, you're going to read the winners. You're not going to say no way, are you?
No
No, it's a little logical conundrum there. Okay, here's the written, this is for the written version of the best written entry. And so who won the best written entry?
Bruce Goldstein.
Bruce Goldstein. When we have an excerpt, a short excerpt from Bruce Goldstein's entry, and we're going to play that now. And it's read by Bruce himself.
Music is really amazing because when the tiny hairs vibrate back and forth to music, electricity reaches the brain's hearing areas, plus other brain areas that make you move and that make you feel emotions like happy or sad. So sounds are vibrations that make you hear and might also make you feel like tapping your feet, dancing, crying, or even jumping for joy. Pretty amazing what tiny hairs vibrating inside the ear can do.
And unfortunately, he can't be with us today because he just had a knee operation and he couldn't travel yet. But he did record an acceptance speech, which we're going to play right now.
I've always been amazed at how vibrations in the air become transformed into sounds that we hear. It's magical. When I started writing this essay, I remembered a scene from a Harry Potter movie in which Harry and his friends were flying through this dark, mysterious cavern, and all kinds of magical things were happening, and it was really exciting. So I thought, why not have my reader go into a dark tube called the inner ear? And inside this tube, they would see amazing things. They would see hairs vibrating, which cause electricity to flow up to the brain, and we hear. And even more amazing, if that electricity was caused by music, then we not only hear, but we feel like dancing or tapping our feet. It wasn't easy writing this essay, but it became fun when I realized that vibrations in the air being transformed into sounds that we hear is every bit as magical as a Harry Potter adventure.
That's great. Let me take that. That's terrific. Now we're going to have the winner of the video competition. This is what is sound conveyed in a short video. Here, I'll take this, make it easier.
Nick Weckeser.
Nick Weckeser, congratulations, Nick. Alec, thank you very much. You did a great job. Thank you. Say hello to Alec. We're going to play just an excerpt from Nick's video. Here is the winning video entry.
All sound starts as a vibration. Something has to wiggle. Seriously, touch right here on your neck and say, ah. Come on. Ah. Do you feel that? That's a fold in your throat vibrating. The same thing happens inside the speaker. There's a piece of metal, paper, or cloth that wiggles back and forth. Whenever something wiggles, it also wiggles the air around it. And air is a lot more interesting than it looks. You can't see it, but you can feel it. Go ahead, try it. Do you feel the air moving between your fingers? All stuff, including the air right here, is made up of tiny bits called molecules. The molecules that make up air move a little differently than the molecules that make up this speaker. Let's take a closer look. Super zoom. When the speaker wiggles, it smushes the air next to it. The air isn't very comfortable like that though, so it tries to move back apart. This smushes the next section of the air and the cycle continues, carrying that wiggle away. Imagine a chain of clones, mostly staying in one place, but passing wiggle energy from one clone to the next. That's kind of what air is doing, but it's not sound yet.
Bravo. Please welcome our winner, Nick Weckeser. Nick, come on out. That was great. Congratulations. Here, let me present you with your trophy for winning the Flame Challenge this year. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if you could hear backstage. It was great to hear the laughs you were getting live from the audience.
It was very nice.
Yeah, when you make something on film or video, you don't really know how it's going over, but when you play it with an audience, you get to hear the real reaction.
Right, it was actually very reassuring.
So now you're on the web, you're not just known by your true last name, you're known as
Nick Lucid, yes.
Nick Lucid. So if people want to look you up on the web, they can Google Nick Lucid.
Yeah, or the YouTube channel is called The Science Asylum. And
Science Asylum.
yes, because I'm a little crazy, so.
And I think your slogan is, it's okay to be a little crazy.
It is, it is.
As long as you don't carry it too far. You know?
Right, a little bit.
Yeah. You know what? When you were, it's interesting. The idea that the audience was appreciating and enjoying it, and you could hear them enjoy it when you were in the same room with them, like just now. But when you're doing it, when you're performing it in front of a camera, you don't have a real person to talk to. How do you get the feeling that you're talking to a real person when all you have is a lens?
Right, that's really tough. So I actually had an issue with this originally when I started making videos. And so what I decided to do was I decided to put googly eyes on my camera.
Googly
eyes.
And that lets you know you're talking to a person.
It really helps. It really helps me make eye contact with the lens.
You know, it's funny, when I did a story on the Science Show about virtual reality, where virtual reality helps you not be afraid of spiders anymore, or go on an airplane and not be afraid of flying.
Right.
They'll do it with a video that's made up of just a rough cartoon, a kind of a very gross picture of the environment. And I said to the scientists, how come you don't have a more realistic cartoon, a more realistic environment? They said the brain doesn't need it. All you need is the rough suggestion of the environment. And here you have a rough suggestion of a face, and you talk to us like we're really there.
I do. And it's actually, it's kind of like the lens is kind of like a big nose. I don't know.
That's great. Well, we all enjoyed it, and thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you, Nick. Congratulations. Thank you. So let me wrap up this really wonderful day, and I want to thank all our participants who were so terrific today. Weren't they great? Give them a hand. And now, here's your chance to participate. If you're around the age of 11, you can help us figure out what next year's question will be. You probably had a piece of paper in your program or on a table in the lobby as you go out. There'll be pieces of paper that you can write your suggestion for next year's question. What is blank? And see if you can make this a challenge for scientists all over the world, and see if you can ask your teacher if she can sign your classroom up to be the judges of next year's contest. Meanwhile, thank you so much for coming. It was great to be with you today.